Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I wanted to bring you guys kind of like a year roundup of the worst, the best kind of goals thrown in there. I did make a houseplant goals for 2024 this year, and I kind of wanted to update on that just because I feel like a lot of those plants have really changed for the better, for the worse, whatever it may be. The first one I want to talk about is actually right behind you guys. This plant has constantly been a struggle plant for me. Last year, around like August, I had an amazing specimen of this plant and I repotted it as soon as winter was beginning and it absolutely hated it. And so the plant that I'm talking about is actually my Micans. It is no longer a little like scraggly looking thing that was looking like it's on its deathbed. No, this thing has grown so well this year, and honestly I have neglected it. It actually hangs from my curtain rod in a Vanda basket, and I constantly forget to water it. I constantly underwater it, and this plant is super resilient. Yeah, it honestly just does so well. And I did recently start using a new fertilizer, and you can kind of see the changes of that fertilizer in this plant. So even though it started to get less light, it's actually started to produce some pretty sizable leaves compared to, the smaller, more immature leaves up here. And I don't know, this plant just makes me so happy. I've always wanted a full trailing basket of Micans. Micans are just super beautiful to me. And so to finally be able to grow this adequately and nicely without it, being a struggle plant for me, it does have really nice roots in here. And yeah, I just love this plant, and it's done me so well this year. So this is definitely one that I would categorize as a success this year. It's really taken on a new life in my collection. Unlike before, I used to baby my Micans. I used to constantly look after it, and this one just sits by my window, especially now in the winter. It's actually getting a lot less light. Our sun rises at about maybe 7 to 8 a.m., maybe in between, and our sun sets at probably 4 o'clock. So it doesn't get a lot of light, and I don't really supplement it. Honestly, it's just getting what it's getting. And I used to have quite a bit of plants that were in that situation, but as our temperatures and our sunlight, I guess, has gotten a lot less, I have definitely moved and reorganized. As you guys can tell, my setup is just completely different now, which this one is kind of ambiguous just because it has done really great this year, but at the same time I'm not entirely happy with where it is right now. But it's also my fault because I'm not giving it the exact conditions that it wants. So we'll just call this one a success, I guess. The one that I'm talking about is my Jose Buono. This one has been so freaking vigorous this year. At the beginning of the year, I wish I documented it. I probably did in an updates or something, but it was probably about the size of my hand, the leaves themselves. And you guys can see how ginormous these leaves have gotten. They are huge, okay? And recently I actually did chop this. It was a lot fuller and a lot more bushy, and I just chopped it. I took a bottom cut and a top cut. The top cut had no roots. I think in total it had 3. And yeah, at the time it gave me this leaf, which made me want to just chop it even more because, temperatures were dropping. It wasn't getting a lot of light, so I don't blame the plant for giving me this leaf. But it wasn't my cup of tea, and so I said, you know what, I'm gonna chop it. And I did chop it. The top cut had 3 freaking roots. This top cut here had 3 freaking roots. And I don't know what it is with me, but I definitely feel a lot more confident in my growing abilities, especially philodendron. Philodendron have just been one of the more easier genus for me. So I was like, you know what, I think I can do it. And I actually just recently potted it up again after having it in water. And I don't know if you guys will be able to see, but there is some roots in there. After I chopped it, I actually found out that this plant is actually moving into caterpillar, which for Jose Buono really means a lot. Like, your leaves are going to be huge. I was kind of beating myself up over that because I don't know, it's taken me so long to get this plant down. For a while there, it just wasn't rooting the greatest for me. I had it in like a sphagnum mix, and the roots were just always like kind of mid. And, you know, recently I figured it out. It was rooting amazingly, and then I just decided to chop it. I was like, if I have to struggle with this plant rooting up for me again, I am not going to be very happy. But honestly, I think once you've sort of experienced something, you're more equipped and better prepared to actually handle it again. So I think that this one is going to be fine. I'm really, really excited to see that it's actually in Cataphyll. I've never had a Jose Buono in Cataphyll, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, this one has also been sitting by my east facing window. It is getting some light from a Sansi bulb. I have a little pendant lamp. Another one that I want to show you guys that's by my window is actually my maidenhair fern. I showed you guys this in my last video, I believe. Maybe. Yes, I did show you guys it in my last video. And after that video, I repotted it. This plant was not happy whatsoever. It actually dropped a majority of its leaves and its fronds. I don't blame it because when I repotted it, a lot of the roots fell off. Repotting ferns in general just hasn't been a great experience for me because a majority of the time those roots will just fall off. They're so thin and fragile that they just do. And this one was just definitely a uphill battle. But I honestly am so confident in this plant and my ability to grow it, just because I know what it's been through. I know how much vigor this plant has and how easy it is. So I am just gonna let it be and let it live. And it is starting to actually grow some new fronds down there. Hopefully you can see them. And so I'm not too stressed about this plant right now. Another goal that I actually set for myself this year was to get my wavy no ID to flowering size and maybe in the process of making seeds. And I am gonna say that this was a fail because partial fail just because of the fact that I did get it to flower and I did pollinate it, a very little amount of pollen, and then I just decided to chop the flower off because I just wasn't satisfied with my want in those seeds. I'm not like crazy about wavy no ID selves. I kind of vowed to myself, I guess, that I would try and be more intentional and I don't know, just better about what I'm creating and what I'm putting out, because I want to create plants that I myself want features in and maybe even start my own lineage. I don't know, I think that would be cool to kind of have like F1s and F2s and just all of that. I think it'd be really cool. But anyways, this plant is a stump and I have regrown it from a stump twice now. I don't know, something about this plant and the way that it's growing for me lately just isn't doing it for me. And I've actually contemplated getting rid of it, which I know is kind of sad because this was my first like ever Anthurium besides my Pally. My Pally was definitely my very first. And this one has just been so fun for me. I loved it when I first got it, and now it's kind of here and I'm just at kind of a crossroads. Like, I don't really know, do I want to keep it? I do love the fused lobes, and I don't know, is it something that I'm gonna see myself really, really enjoying? I'm not sure. But I also feel like this plant hasn't really gotten a fair chance currently, because when I got it I was definitely at a certain level with Anthuriums, and now that I've sort of have a little bit more of an understanding of them, I want to give this a fair shot, but I don't know if I have the effort to really want to do that. So yeah, this is one Anthurium that just hasn't been, just hasn't been that great in my collection lately, and partially my fault. And yeah, and I will say a lot of my more smaller Anthuriums are not doing great right now. I want to say I have like a select handful of Anthuriums that are actually responding well, and a lot has happened this year. I actually started a new like soil batch You guys saw that actually in my last video, and that soil batch was probably the reason that my anthuriums weren't doing so great. It was also the, beginning of winter, the beginning of the cold season, and normally that's when anthuriums start to thrive because they don't really mind those lower temps. But mine, I think that soil mix was just way too water retentive for my watering. I just wasn't used to it. I am very much used to like a chunkier, more draining mix, and that mix just definitely wasn't having it. Yeah, it wasn't it. So a lot of my anthuriums are doing poorly, but I do want to show you guys the select few that are doing well, and I'm just gonna speed run through these because I don't really want to focus too much on the anthuriums. Alright, so the first one that I want to talk to y'all about is this anthurium. I actually got this from Russo Plant Care. This is a Anthurium Pap Regardens crossed with a Carla Blackier that's been crossed with a Ralph Linam. And this one has been probably one of the best growers in my collection. I just can't even say that enough. It's been super, super easy, super, super drought tolerant, and just like an amazing rooter. I actually repotted it recently and it seems to be taking to that well. Oh, yes I do. There's actually a new root right there. But yeah, this one has just been so amazing, and I say that also because I was actually growing this in no drainage for a little bit, and it freaking loved it. Like literally it rooted out so much in that vessel. I think it was also the mix was pretty airy, but of course being in no drainage, it was also going to have a lot of water in there, or moisture I guess, and so this one did super, super well, and I honestly think that it's gonna go into caterpillar soon. But you never can really tell with any plant. Some plants will go into caterpillar sooner than others, and it doesn't really rely on the leaf size or anything like that. But this leaf recently is just beautiful, you guys. I really do just adore this plant. Hopefully it is focusing on this plant. There we go. And yeah, I just love it. This one was also kind of the start of my love for those more loby plants, or even just those more like flat lobed ones, because of these more younger, more immature leaves. You guys can kind of see the lobes weren't as high or close together, especially on this newer leaf. They definitely got very close, and yeah, I really, really like this plant. This plant is actually a no ID, so I have no clue what it is, but I do have my thoughts, I guess. I kind of have a feeling that it's an ace of spades, but I'm not like saying that like confidently whatsoever. I kind of just have a feeling because ace of spades tends to have, more specifically the dark form or just like the regular form, tend to have like deeper veins than the actual leaf, and with this one you can definitely see that the veins are really, really red. Oh my god, I hate when my phone does that. Okay, hold on. The veins are like super, super red, and the petioles are actually D-shaped, I believe. Yeah, they're actually D-shaped petioles, and yeah, the texture, it's like a pap, sort of velvety. It's like that velcro-y type of velvet that kind of grips your fingers, and it's really quiet. I don't know. It's just such a beautiful plant. I don't really care to know what it is. It would be cool just for like, I don't know, when I'm making seeds or breeding, I would like to kind of have a name for this, but I don't really at the moment. I have no clue what this is. There is a really belate, bumpy texture on this, which just kind of adds more to the fact that I feel like this is an ace of spades, but I don't want to call it an ace of spades because obviously I have no idea what this is. And so yeah, but this one has been one of the anthuriums that I feel like has taken pretty well. Yeah, and I also got it at this size, and it's actually moving into caterpillar. But yeah, this one is one of those anthuriums that has done pretty well for me, and has also just made me really love it, honestly. The belateness and those red sort of veins really do it for me. Yeah, and the second to last Anthurium I'm gonna show you guys is actually a complex hybrid. This was a seedling at the beginning of the year, and I will pop in a picture of what it looked like. It was literally like the 2 leaves attached to the seed, and look at it now. It is so freaking beautiful. I love this plant. It has my heart entirely, and this one has been one of the easiest, most vigorous Anthuriums ever. Recently it kind of did take a stall, but again, that was my fault. I just haven't been that great with my Anthuriums because of that soil thing that happened and then just the transition. But recently I did repot it into a new soil, and it's already starting to take root into it. I believe there was another root somewhere, but I'm not I'm not. Oh, down here. I just found it actually. Yeah, so it's been taking really, really well to this, and it's actually given me a new leaf, which I think that this one should be moving into caterpillar pretty soon. Oh my god, my throat. I think that this one should be moving into caterpillar pretty soon, if not by the next leaf, but it is so beautiful, you guys. Like, I cannot get over this plant. It is so daggery, and the lobes just, you know, they're so, it's just perfect. And yeah, I have given the name for this before. It's a lot of different things mixed in. There's red crystal, there's Carla, there's Pap, and yeah, it's just stunning. And yeah, I cannot say enough about this one. It's been growing so well, despite all the things it's gone through this year. It really has just sort of picked up and gone right back to growing, which I love. The next one that I want to show you guys is actually my Florida Beauty, which is a success, I think. This one wasn't on my goals whatsoever because it was already pretty big. I think the leaves at the time of filming were probably around this size, and it's just consistently growing. It actually has a new leaf back here, and this one did go through a little bit this year. I accidentally notched it this year, and it grew out a completely different growth point than it was originally supposed to be growing, and you can kind of see that split here. This was the last leaf, I believe. Was it? No, this was the first leaf on that new growth point, and this leaf tells me a lot about the node, about the stem, what it looks like, because before that a lot of the variegation was this more sort of splashy type, less sectoral, and then I just get this, you know, gigantic sectoral thing, which isn't normal for this plant or the variegation on this plant. And so I was kind of scared for a lot of the newer variegation and the newer leaves and what the variegation was really going to look like, especially this center leaf here. This variegation is just like almost non-existent, which definitely did scare me. I haven't ever had issues with, you know, it reverting or anything like that, just based off of the original stalk and the original stem. It definitely kind of scared me, and I'm still kind of a little bit on the fence of whether this might revert, but so far, you know, the variegation is still here. It's still pretty strong in the leaves, and especially this, oh my gosh, especially this newer leaf definitely has a lot more variegation. You can see in this lower half, and then in the wings of the leaf you can definitely see some of that variegation coming through. So haven't lost hope yet, and I hope that it continues that way. I actually need to extend this. I was meant to do that yesterday, but slipped my mind. And yeah, this one has been rooting amazingly. I was actually growing this in no drainage at the beginning of the year, or somewhere in the middle to beginning of the year, and I recently took it out, and it's been loving it. It has so many roots at the bottom. Honestly, no drainage or drainage, it doesn't really matter. I have realized recently that some plants just definitely do prefer drainage holes, and some plants don't really care either way. Like my Micans is growing amazingly in no drainage. My Buono has grown amazingly in no drainage. It really can just be what you want personally for the plant, or what the plant kind of shows you, I guess. With this plant, I definitely saw a difference in drainage versus no drainage. And again, that doesn't mean that all Florida Beauties need to be grown in no drainage. It kind of is just what this plant and my personal care regimen says, I guess, about the plant. And yeah, the root growth on this plant in no drainage has just been crazy compared to drainage. Wait, no, I'm flipping them. This plant has grown amazing roots in no drainage. No, this plant has grown amazing roots in drainage with drainage holes, and in no drainage it grew like maybe one or two. So I can definitely tell a difference in this, but that doesn't mean that all Florida beauties have to be grown in no drainage or anything like that. It's kind of just my watering and my skill level and what this plant sort of reacts to in my conditions, I guess. There's a lot of factors that have changed this year. My fertilizer has changed, my soil has changed, and so maybe I should talk a little bit about that. With a lot of my plants, I think I'm gonna start switching my soil out to my like more soilless mix. I called it in my alocasia video. I think a lot of my plants have reacted really nicely to that mix. My begonias, my philodendrons, and the only plants that I haven't really messed around with in moving into that mix are my anthuriums. So I think that maybe I'm going to make that my like mix for all of my plants. Of course, I definitely want to run some tests, some experiments to really see what plants really love it and what anthuriums really love it. But I think that that mix has just been the most successful all around for all of my plants. And I say that in that mix has kind of allowed me to overwater a little bit, and the plants will still freaking love it. Like, they will eat it up, especially this philodendron here. I don't let it get too dry. I let the moss bowl definitely get a little bit crunchy. When it starts to feel crunchy towards the bottom of this moss bowl, like, I will literally just push my finger in here, and if I hear a crunch, I will water it. I don't ever really look at the mix down below, but there has been some times where I know that the mix down below isn't completely dry or isn't completely ready to be watered. You guys have seen the roots, it just doesn't care, and I really like that, to be honest. It just is a lot more forgiving, and the plants still absolutely love it. The next plant that I want to talk about is my Anthurium florum. This one has also been a success despite what it has gone through this year. I believe that at the beginning of the year I had just potted one of these up. Now you guys can see the change. This thing is in a gigantic pot. Look at this huge freaking growth point. So, you know, it's definitely been a success for me. This plant I've had for going on 3 years, I think, and I definitely did struggle with this. This plant has actually been with me through all of my learnings, and so that's why it's not really at the biggest size ever. But I think that now that I've gotten it in a lot more stable conditions with consistent conditions and consistent fertilizing as well, it's just been a lot happier. And the last leaf is actually this one right here, which is by far the longest leaf this plant has had on it. Yeah, I really like this one, and I kind of want to have two, but I know that my space right now doesn't really allow that, so I'm not really pressed for that. But this one has just been so happy and such an easy freaking rooter, exactly like the Pap Carla mix from Russo. It has honestly been just super happy, and I could not ask for a better experience with this plant this year. It just makes me super happy because this one is another one, kind of like my Micans. I've always had a sort of image or vision for what I wanted this plant to be in my collection, and it is slowly but surely turning into that. And it's really making me want some other strappy leaved anthuriums, more specifically the Wenley. Another thing that's actually changed this year, which I do want to talk about really quickly, is actually my wish list. I no longer have a wish list that I'm like keeping up with, that I'm like constantly typing in new plants. There is definitely plants that kind of circle in my head, like there's the Markgravia SP El Coca. Ow! I just pulled my pinky. The Markgravia SP El Coca, I think is what it's called. That one is been on my freaking mind nonstop. I definitely want to pursue that. A lot of begonias. I actually got a new begonia, which maybe I'll show you guys that right now. and the Wenlingrii has definitely been on that. A Carla mix has definitely been on that. You know, there's just like small things that I see and I'm like, ooh, I really like that, or ooh, this is cool. And I will just kind of stock it in my little file cabinet in my brain of like plants that I'm into, or I'll just save it on Instagram. Like, it's not like a dedicated time to really be like, oh, let me build my wish list, you know. And I'm not even really sure what's on my wish list anymore, like actual like physical wish list. There's also some Hoyas on my wish list, a Hoya undulata. I did get one earlier this year, but that has croaked, so that is no longer with us. The Hoya SPL Borneo, no, Hoya SP Borneo, I think. Oh no, there's a different name for it, and I'm thinking, I see the Hoya in my head, but I can't put the name to it. Maybe I'll pop in a picture. But there is definitely plants that I'm into, but it's not like, you know, I'm sitting there hunting or sitting there, you know, preparing my list to really go look after them. I just kind of let it happen as it will, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then I can wait. Yeah, this year has also been, I want to say, the year that I've bought the least plants compared to last year. I think last year I was definitely more on a hunt to really like get all of the plants I wanted, and this year has been quite different in that sense. So yeah, let me continue with what I'm doing. This is my new begonia. This is, oh god, okay, I thought I threw away the tag. This is begonia taconite. I don't feel like I'm saying that right, but this is one of those that shines blue when it's in the dark with highlight. And I freaking love this one. I think for next year, to be honest, I'm really going to be getting into those more terrarium begonias. I do want to build a terrarium next year, and I hope that that will happen. I do already have a sort of display case for that. I love this begonia. It is a Rex begonia apparently, which it's not really acting like one. Just because of its growth pattern, it definitely looks like a cane, but a lot of the newer growth points are at the bottom, so it definitely is a cane begonia, or a Rex begonia. But this one has those belate freaking leaves, velvety texture, and an amazing sheen to it. So I just love this one, and this one has been in that sphagnum cocoa chunk mix. And I have it kind of in like a self-watering situation. Yeah, I just leave a little bit of water down here, and it has been loving it. And like, when I mean loving it, it's been rooting up so freaking well. Let me show you guys this side. It has so many roots. The next plant that I want to talk about is my Ripsalis capilliformis. This one is a jungle cacti, and I absolutely love this one. This one, kind of the same story as the Micans. I've always wanted a sort of full basket like this. I think I've had this for going on 2 years, maybe a year and a half, and it has been so easygoing. I did struggle with this for a very long time in the beginning of it being in my collection, but I think when I got this pot, I potted it in here. It's just in pumice and perlite. I don't have any actual soil in here. I do fertilize with every single watering, and if I don't fertilize, I'm usually have CalMag or some Myco in there. This thing has just been so freaking, like, it's just been so nice and so easygoing. Of course, I did struggle with it at the beginning with a lot of my plants. That tends to be the story. And now I cannot express how much love I have for this plant. It is just such a delightful plant to have in my collection. It brings such a different growing pattern and vibe and look to it that I just really, really love. It has kind of sparked my joy for a lot of other jungle cacti, and I just cannot express that enough. Yeah, I have a very few select amount of Ripsalis in my collection, and there's a very select few Ripsalis that I actually enjoy the look of, and this one has just been really pushing me to kind of add those to my wish list or to my radar. And yeah, I just can't really express how much joy this plant brings me. Just within its growth pattern, it is so freaking fun. And, you know, it's the little display I love as well. So, yeah, there's that one. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. And this plant is my Philodendron Splendid, which you guys can see the corner back there is so empty now. But this plant has been definitely a success. It has gone through so freaking much, and yet despite that, you guys, it has been still so vigorous, so like, I don't know, it's just wanted to thrive. It's just wanted to kind of push through all of its struggles and continue to size up and continue to root up and grow, and it has just been such a nice plant to grow. In the beginning of the summer, I was actually struggling with this plant. I was getting a lot of like weird funky leaves. They were like kind of curled, and they would immaturely harden off, and they would kind of stay like a really bright green as if they were just unfurled. Yeah, it just wasn't a great time, to be honest. Really wasn't. And it took me a while to kind of figure it out, and I don't even think I have completely figured it out. All I did was shove this in a corner by my windowsill and let it do whatever. I think I have theories for why it did what it did and what really caused it, but I can never really say for sure. My theory as of right now is that it just wasn't getting enough light. I believe one of the leaves that was like really immaturely hardened off had like a really long petiole, and to me that kind of says that it's sort of hunting for light and it really wants to push its leaves out to get more light. And so I think just moving it to the windowsill really helped, because of course it was the beginning of summer, we were starting to get a lot more light in, and yeah, this plant just has really loved it. I've also again neglected it. I didn't really water this consistently. It was just sort of growing on whatever it had in the corner, and whenever I would, you know, take the time to actually look at it and see if it needed water, I would. And, you know, it kind of has pushed through that, and again, with that neglect, it has still thrived, which I just couldn't ask for a better plant to handle it, you know, any better. At the beginning of the year, this plant was such a tiny freaking plant. Its leaves were probably smaller than the size of my hand, and now it's just this beautiful plant, you guys. Like, look at this. Oh my gosh, I love it so much, and I just cannot get over how easy this plant has been. Yeah, love it so much. Okay, the next plant, I actually needed a step stool to get it down. This is my Solanum uleanum from Russo Plant Care. If you've watched me for a while, you already know how and where this is going, so I apologize if you've heard this a bajillion times, but this is one of my easiest plants, one of my most loved, most favorite plants ever in my collection, and just look at it. And this isn't even fully extended, you guys, because these vines do curl up, so just just look at that. Yeah, this plant is super easy, and I think that it's really starting to become a lot more popular, which I am behind that. Okay, I for one love this plant. It's originally, I believe it is a terrarium plant, which this plant has kind of made me contemplate the like categorization of a terrarium plant, because this thing, I live in the Pacific Northwest and it constantly rains here. You'd think our humidity would be like a crazy amount. It's really not. I think year round we probably get an average of like maybe 30 to 40, less in the winter obviously, and recently it's the winter, you know, it's starting to get a lot more cold, and I do have my heater on consistently, and this one has just been like taking it like a freaking champ, and it is such a vigorous grower. If you're looking for one that's more lucrative, I guess this would be definitely an option. I'm constantly, and I mean constantly, taking cuttings of this. I literally have a cutting in my freaking thing right here. So yeah, everyone around me, everyone in my family has a cutting of this plant. Everyone that's a plant person around me has a cutting of this plant, because it is just super freaking easy to propagate, to just growing. It's just, it loves all of it. And yeah, you can definitely see that within its growth. At the beginning of the year, This was like a tiny little bush, and I'll actually pop in a picture if I can find it, if I can remember what video it's in. I'll pop it in, and you would not believe that, you know, that thing turned into this here. So it's just, it's so easygoing. I've had my Micans for like 3 years, maybe 2 years. I've had this for less than that, and look at how much it's grown. And again, this isn't it fully extended out because this goes up, it goes lower, right? Like, this is just one of my absolute favorite plants. I share this with everybody and anybody that I can because of how much this plant just grows. And honestly, you know how Paleas are known as like the friendship plant? I think that this should be given that name as well because it is just so vigorous, easygoing, it's easy to prop, easy, like, just, I love it so much, and I can never express that completely, so I'm sorry if I'm talking too much about it, but it is just so amazing. And yeah, a lot of what I've shown in this video has been the successes, and a lot of that is because a lot of my fails have been mostly Anthurium. I don't really think that there's any that I'm like, okay, I failed at this. There is one actually, oh, two, actually, maybe three. One of them is actually my monkey tail cactus. Here she is. Here's my monkey tail cactus. Oh my god, my stomach. Here's my monkey tail cactus. It was when I got my like lamp for my other Sansi bulb. Because I have like a clip-on Sansi light that has two heads to it, so you can put two bulbs, and I took one of those bulbs out and I put it into a pendant lamp somewhere else, and I thought that this plant was getting enough light, and it definitely wasn't. It was staying wet for way too long, and I noticed just way too late, and so I recently chopped it back. But this is one of those plants that I'm like not really worried about. It's a cactus. It's pretty like easygoing. It is a little bit thirstier than a cactus, I would say. It was literally all goopy at the top, so it was pretty bad, but I've already taken care of it, and I'm definitely taking it back on watering, and I'm also giving it a lot more light with my Barinas. It's like right up against it, so I'm not like too worried about it, but this one has definitely been one that has flopped this year, I would say. So this one has also been a fail this year, I think. This is my Vichelia areoloba. This is a arid type of plant. It's grown in like Africa. It likes a lot of sand, and I cannot figure this plant out. I actually did get this from Seattle Plant Daddy as well, and I cannot figure it out. It has been on the up and down very consistently recently, and I think that the soil mix that it's in right now just isn't doing it the best, so I definitely need to switch it out. It's like pon, and it's like really, really chunky. I don't even know what it's in anymore, and so I think that getting it out of that would definitely help, and being a lot more consistent with the watering. This one isn't one that like doesn't like water. I think that it does, but just very, you know, arid, well draining type of watering. So I think that, you know, maybe I should focus on this one a little bit more, because I think if I did, I would definitely be growing this a lot like a bonsai, like some of my Ficus, which I actually do want to show you guys one of my Ficus. Another one that has been a fail, which I'm not going to take it out because it's in a prop box in here, and it would just be kind of a hassle to take it out, is my Hoya caudata. I actually chopped all of that back. I have 3 cuttings left, and those 3 cuttings are so wrinkly, and just it's been a constant struggle with that plant. And that one I think was actually on my on my like goals to like get it like full like a Micans, trailing like a Micans, and for the life of me I just cannot figure that plant out. I don't know what it is. I think I definitely need to put a little bit more effort into it, just because it's literally just thrown in the prop box. Like, it doesn't have a pot. They're just laying around in the humidity, which I thought would be fine for Hoyas. I know it is fine for Hoyas, but it's not intentional enough towards actually helping the plant produce more roots or more leaves or anything like that. So definitely need to focus that one a little bit more. My alocasias are going to be the death of me. Both of my alocasias are actually struggling right now. My Frydek is also in there. It's a stump, which at this point in my journey with alocasias, I think is going to be a normal thing. Like, I think it's just going to consistently go into dormancy, which I know isn't supposed to be the norm for alocasias. They are perennials, but I think where they're natively grown, they don't necessarily, go down to stumps all of the time, or maybe they do, I'm not sure. Again, not a horticulturalist, not a botanist, anything like that. Yeah, both of my alocasias are just not doing the greatest right now, which I'm kind of okay with. Recently, I want to say a development that has happened within my collection is a lot of my plants are just, more dialed back, or they're bigger, and I've kind of allowed them more space. And I really am enjoying that. I really do love kind of having that ability to move things around and not be stressed for space. I actually took down one of the lighting areas in my longer, taller shelf for my plants, and I am super, super happy with that. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry if you can hear my stomach. I am very hungry. I just feel really happy with not being stressed for space, kind of just giving my plants more space to themselves instead of individual plants being so crunched together, This here is my little ficus bonsai, we can call it, I guess. This is my Ficus aspera, or the mosaic fig, and this one I believe I also got this from Seattle Plant Daddy. I'm realizing that a lot of my more unique plants are definitely from him. This one I am super, super happy with how it's grown. If you guys look at the back, it just has such a bulbous type of growing pattern that I really, really like. And at first, I'm not gonna lie, I got this as soon as they were out. As soon as I saw them, they were kind of a little bit overpriced. If I remember correctly, I think it was around maybe 30. No, it wasn't. Maybe it was a little bit over $20, which for the amount that these have been pushed out, I don't think is cheap. But it's definitely not the most expensive that they've been. But this one, I was kind of a little bit bummed because it was kind of small when I got it, and then I saw a bunch of them being pushed out after I had bought it, and they were a lot taller, a lot bigger, a lot, more nicely variegated. And recently it's kind of hit me that I don't really mind it, because it's kind of allowed me to grow this plant as I've wanted to. And so this, this this bushy, more palm growth, but it's kind of allowed me to control the growth to just keep it more like a bonsai, I guess. And I even have it in a little bonsai pot, and I just love it so much. It's so freaking cute. It's one of my favorite plants by far, and it just has so much character within it. And the variegation, I believe, from my experience, I believe that the variegation is actually light dependent, because you guys can see a lot of the lower leaves aren't really, there is some crazy variegation, but they're not really a crazy amount. And recently, as it's been growing closer to the light, you can see a lot of those, more white specks have definitely started to grow out a lot more. I am in love with the mintiness on this. It's just so beautiful. If you guys are into ficus and more of those ficus bonsai types, I think that this would be such a great option. Even if the specimen that you get isn't growing the best, I think that this is definitely a really good option for bonsai, or just having that more kind of sculptural shape to it. Yeah, I've really loved it, and it's honestly one of my most favorite plants. I think it's just become a staple. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for just sticking around through this year, enjoying my content. And if you're new, please subscribe, comment, all of those amazing things. I am slowly working on a channel sort of rebrand. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I kind of felt the skills I had, I just wasn't equipped. But I don't know, I'm just not a person who has a lot of confidence in myself in that way. And so yeah, I am gonna slowly kind of take this channel into a new light, which I love doing. It just kind of makes it feel like a fresh start for me, and I think that is something that I really do need with this channel. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please give it a like, comment. Thank you all so much for watching, and I truly hope you enjoyed.